As a woman biologist, how is it possible that I do not know what my own biology looks like? That's insulting, right? Okay, so you're mad. What are you going to do about it?
Certain women, not all women, receive the power of their sexuality before they can even reconcile the identity of their childhood. What is the best way for a young woman, in your point of view, to handle their power at a young age and the unwanted attention it warrants to get to a point where their sexual health and desire can align with their maturity and experience?
So I don't think we do young girls a favor when we don't talk about the fact that just like boys, they have wet dreams. And that just like boys, their clitoris, when boys' penises get hard, clitorises get hard. And so if we talk about this as simply what happens in your body as a natural and just part of who you are, then we stop the cycle of shame. I mean, the world is a very dangerous place for women and for girls. And I read once a woman who's a poet, and I've forgotten her name, so I apologize, wrote this, which really strikes me as true. God should have made girls lethal when he made monsters of men. And so that's kind of where I'm at. If I had a daughter right now and she was really young, I would teach her to use her voice, to use her fists, to be as tough as she possibly could, because it's a dangerous world out there. I also wish that we gave girls, as they grew and developed into young women, a way to feel proud of what that power was and the erotic within their life. And so they could see it as something, as a gift. The person who's arousing shouldn't be blamed for someone else's behavior. And that's what happens now, right? We're blamed. And so girls shouldn't dress that way. Girls shouldn't drink that much. Girls shouldn't behave that way. Well, boys shouldn't assault girls, right? But men shouldn't assault women. Let's just start there. So I think the entire way that we talk about sex and gender roles and the way we move through the world has to change.
One of the terms that stood out to me was imposter syndrome. Many women focus on so much on creating domesticity and marriage in their lives beyond understanding the elements of their own inner development. How, and in accordance with #MeToo, can women get beyond the imposter syndrome, in your opinion?
Well, the first thing that has to happen is that women have to be treated as equal in the workplace, right? And so I know many women who are now accomplished professionals in medicine or law, and they still have colleagues who call them honey or think it's okay to give them back rubs. So that's like just reinforcing the imposter syndrome, is that you don't really belong in the room. And so you can't believe in yourself when you are constantly being denied the authority that you have and have worked for so long. And I also think, the #MeToo, I mean, Hollywood is a culture of powerful men who use and abuse all people for what they want. And so it's not surprising that powerful men would use and abuse beautiful women. And so I hope that the power dynamic is shifting, and it is somewhat, people of color and women are having more voices in all of these conversations, but it has to shift a lot before it's finally equal.
What is unfair in your point of view and in the context of the film of the pursuit of motherhood over and above the person becoming a mother? How does that individual mother maintain an evolving sexual self in the midst of the purity guilt given mothers in their lives?
I'll start with looking at sort of the way the Catholic Church, what they say about motherhood. So that what they hold up to all women is the Virgin Mary. Well, thank you very much. And while I understand, if I watch Joseph Campbell, that the Virgin is really a symbol for the spiritual and the other part, okay, that's fine. But mostly it's telling women that they are tarnished as soon as they become mothers, because now they're not virgins. And so there's a real, it's very difficult to reconcile those two identities. And so also children are an enormous undertaking as both parents, but the burden of it falls on women. And so you're tired, right? And you don't, it's really hard to feel sexy when you have been taking care of children all day, or you have to come home and take care of them and you're exhausted. And so I don't think enough people talk about, it's wonderful to have children. They are the light of my life. Women are still punished for being mothers if they also want to be CEOs or the top surgeon in a hospital or whatever it is. They're still punished. Well, as men are not punished for wanting to be fathers.
Losing one's virginity is something that is mostly joked about or often made the subject of teen movie comedies. How can a person create the healthiest environment for making the biological and psychological transition?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to get rid of the word losing your virginity. You're not losing anything, right? Because virginity is not a valuable commodity. Let's just get rid of that. Okay.
Yes.
It's nothing. All right. It's nothing. It's the absence of an experience. And I think for me, when both my kids were getting ready to be sexual, and I spoke to both of them about it openly. And I think that's what has to happen. There has to be a trusted adult who, gives people the truth, both kids, your son and your daughter. It can be a big deal when you haven't had sex before. And it can be a big deal because it's a big deal to get naked with another person.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what we want to give our kids a toolbox that has things that they can actually use to help them navigate life experiences. It's not going to work to say, no, don't have sex. That's like really stupid. Okay, you're going to have sex. A, first, protected sex. B, make sure everybody is using birth control. And C, it's not going to be what you think. Let's just start there. So we need to be honest with kids.
Yeah. Your last film was a narrative feature, your first.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn about yourself as a director that helped you in this documentary pursuit going forward?
Well, first off, I learned that I really enjoyed fiction directing, and that I enjoyed the interaction with my actors and the crew. And I learned that my experience as a documentary filmmaker in sort of watching and observing other people helped me talk to my actors and give them insight into the roles that they were playing, because I had been watching, real people in real lives, behave for years. And so that gave me a knowledge base from which I could draw upon when I spoke to my actors. And they're really, you have to structure a documentary film as a narrative most often. It has to have a first, second, and third act, or it has to be structured in some way. In the same way with fiction film, right? You have to have a structure, and you have to have people engaged in the lives of who you're telling a story about. And that is true, whether it's fiction or fact.
Finally, what advice would you give men, especially when they learn things they might have not known before after watching this film, on how to evolve their own relationship with women's sexuality beyond their own needs?
So it was really interesting. I heard from a lot of men when they'd seen the film, and they were all really grateful for the information. And I truly believe that for heterosexual men who love women, knowing what makes their partners experience pleasure is something they all want. And I also really believe that, I talk about the patriarchy and how, once, women are in cages, but men are in cages as well. And while it's a better looking cage, it's still a cage, right? And so I think that one of the best things about sex, or that should be about sex, and people who have really great sex lives always say this, is that you can talk to each other, right? And so I think that if you create an environment where a woman feels like she can use her voice and say what she wants, then that's going to work for her partner as well. Because sex is an act, most usually, between two people or two or more people. And that experience is something that it's a way to communicate with somebody else. And when everyone is fully invested in the experience and how it and getting what they need from it, then it's a much better experience. And so I think the cage that men are in is that they have to be these macho sexual people who go around, giving women what they need. Well, that's ridiculous. Okay. And I can't imagine that they find that something that isn't a burden as well.
This is Patrick McDonald for HollywoodChicago.com. Copyright 2021.